Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to jump in the coffin.
You missed.
Jump in the coffin. Thank you.
Multiple times. Oh, it's like jumping in the coffin gave you a health restore. That's really nice, the coffin.
And once again, the coffin is a magic portal that takes us to our character-unique specific stage. The underground waterway is the only stage that Carrie plays that Cornell does not. I skipped over all of Carrie and Reinhardt's tower stages in Cornell's story, but but this one is a stage that you only play as Carrie and Henry.
Interesting that jumping down this coffin leads to two separate paths for two different people.
3 separate paths for 3 separate people, because you
Wow.
end up on the outer wall as Cornell, you end up in the underground waterway as Carrie, and the underground tunnel as Reinhardt. Now, I think in the context of the story, this would be where the two characters split up instead of working together, but since they never actually work together in-game, you just kind of have to infer that that's the intention.
Because we never see Reinhardt and Carrie interact at all.
No. No. They don't appear in each other's stories. When, like, the other... Oh, damn. Yeah, pretty much.
You have to think about, like, in the narrative of video game... Oh my god, they take you all the way back here? Oh no, you haven't saved.
This is because I picked previously saved instead of restart stage. If I had picked which means I have to fight the vampires again.
The Curb Your Enthusiasm music is playing in my head right now.
Piece of shit vampire. Get fucked.
So yeah, I'm just thinking about, like, in the narrative of video games, like, if you actually died and the story ended when the character died, like, how many anticlimactic Mario games are there where Mario just falls down a pit in World 4 and then Bowser just wins and the princess is stuck there for forever?
Well,
It's
I mean,
like, oh.
that's one of the cool things about video games is that, you know, if you have the imagination for it, the various fail states that you can trigger by dying or landing in a trap in a horror game or whatever can be considered endings to a story. And some games actually, you know, take advantage of that, like Dark Souls with its undead mechanic, or Soul Reaver with the spectral realm.
There's also just things like there's the Zelda timeline BS where Link loses an Ocarina of Time, but it's just like, oh, okay, but he loses climactically in that fight against Ganon. Versus like, Link got eaten by a like and spit off the edge in the Fire Temple, and then Zelda things were screwed there. It's kind of like a less dramatic beginning to the Wind Waker than Link lost to
No, you see, my problem with that, though, because I agree that it's complete and utter... I agree that it's complete and utter bull. Go ahead, Lewis. What's up?
Well, I was going to say, Wind Waker is actually in the timeline where Link wins.
Okay. Oh, my God. You know what I mean.
That more reminds me of the Way Forward game, based off the movie The Mummy.
Oh, yeah, that was cool.
Where you, if you die, you have to actually play as a separate soldier and pick up the shit you lost.
Yeah, that I thought was a neat, like, use of the Dark Souls mechanic when you die, where it's just like, no, you're just another nameless soldier who was sent in to finish the job after the first guy died. Like, I thought that was really neat and interesting how that's the only decent thing to come out of the Dark Universe.
You see, the thing that always bothered me about, to go back to the Zelda timeline shit, is that why make a separate timeline for when Link loses in one particular video game?
That doesn't have a bad ending for when that happens?
Well, no, in that case, it's like, why doesn't the timeline branch when Link loses in Zelda 1? Why isn't there a separate timeline when Link loses in Zelda 2? Link to the Past.
It's because there really wasn't a timeline and they stitched one together out of paperclip and duct tape.
Or is it just because Ocarina of Time is the most popular one? Or the most beloved one?
Well, it's because Ocarina of Time was conceptualized to be the origin story of the series, you know, before they did that again with Skyward Sword.
It's not even the first time they did that, though. Link to the Past was considered the origin of the
series. Well,
yeah,
they kept writing backwards for some reason around that time. It was weird.
Honestly, I don't even consider Skyward Sword the first game anymore, considering it ties more into Breath of the Wild than Tears of the Kingdom than it does any other Zelda game.
Isn't Echoes of Wisdom also at the beginning?
Those might as well be their own separate universe.
Well, the thing is, yeah, you're right. You can kind of like clearly see the dividing line between different creative leads in the Zelda series, because like the Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom chunk of the series didn't even particularly care so much about the trio of goddesses anymore. They just talk about Hylia a bunch, at least until Echoes of Wisdom brought them back, which was neat. I'm glad they're back. It's a neat pantheon.
It's also neat because like we don't ever really get to see like the three goddesses are all very clearly benevolent, so it kind of implies that, you know, the Triforce of Power isn't necessarily just like something Ganon has and is evil. You know, like there could be someone who embodies the idea of strength.
No, but the Triforce of Power is a horrible judge of character.
Yeah. We just never get to see that. You know, especially when Breath of the Wild was new, we had a lot of fan art of like a friendly Breath of the Wild-ized Ganondorf. And I do kind of want to see that idea brought into fruition where, you know, maybe Ganondorf isn't evil, because they keep bringing him back and Ganondorf sucks. Like,
well, it's the same Ganondorf in every game he's in, so...
Yeah,
it's
but like...
we actually have a second Ganondorf now. After so many games, we finally have a second Ganondorf who is a different person. But,
oh god, is this like Batman's three Jokers thing going on here? Or?
No, it's just like the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom timeline literally can't be the same Ganondorf, because he has his own separate origin, his own separate time when he tricked the king, and his own separate sealing and unsealing.
Yes. The problem is that he's the same... Like, the only time Ganondorf has had any characterization that's beyond mwahaha, ha 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 ha, is Wind Waker, where there's like some element of sorrow and regret added to him, and it's not a lot, but it is something. And like I found Ganondorf in Tears of the Kingdom to be a far less compelling antagonist than the literally faceless and wordless Ganon from Breath of the Wild, which is impressive.
Well, that's the thing about Breath of the Wild Ganondorf, is that he and the Calamity are the same thing. You know?
Yeah, but like I thought the Calamity was a really interesting, like, not necessarily interesting, but effective sort of like kind of worldwide corruption evil, versus Ganondorf in Tears of the Kingdom was just like a guy.
There was intrigue in wondering, how did it get so fucked up for this Ganondorf in the Breath of the Wild continuity? And then from what I understand in Tears of the Kingdom is what happens when you try and explain it.
Yeah, it's mostly just because there's no charisma to him. There's no like depth or anything. There are some effective moments, like when you find the Gloom Hands and the Phantom Ganons. Like, they're scary, you know, like that's effective. But like as a character, I think it's a failure.
I don't necessarily think it's a failure, but the thing is, all of the interesting stuff that could potentially have happened with Ganondorf is once again in the distant past. So, like, in the future, when you're actually encountering him, he's a dehydrated raisin zombie, and you don't actually...
Not the raisin zombies.
You don't actually get to, like, interact with him much. You get to interact with him more than you did with the Calamity, but that's a low bar. You know?
I think even in the flashbacks, he's not that interesting, because it's clear to literally everyone from the very start that he's evil and he's trying to trick you. And nobody falls for it.
Nobody falls for it, but he also has a plan for when they don't fall for it, so it's interesting in that respect. But he also doesn't appear much in the flashbacks either. He has a few scenes, and that's it.
The most interesting thing to come from it was when all the artists got thirsty for rehydrated Ganondorf.
Yeah, that is true. I think, here's the thing. There's stuff to do with this, even with this very basic thing of Ganondorf has evil plan. He is going to trick the good guys into making him trust them. Then he will enact his evil plan. I know that there's interesting things to do with this because fantasy writers love this frickin' trope. If you go to your Barnes & Noble and you pick up, 5 or 6 fantasy or YA novels off the shelf, I'll bet you at least 3 of them use that trope, and it's effective. You can make it well done because, what if he actually became friends with the good guys while they were doing that, and and now he's conflicted with his feelings, Yes, it's a trope and it's schlocky and a cliche, but it's done so much because it works, God damn it. So, yeah, I don't know. I want them to try Ganondorf again and, actually try to, give him a relationship with the characters beyond take over.
That was kind of a disappointing thing for me because Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom brought back the Gerudo after, ages and ages of them barely existing. And the Gerudo gets so much development in that duology.
The Gerudo are
it's
awesome.
Insane.
Yeah.
The Gerudo are the best race.
You know what? It's not to derail from that, but I think that's exactly why I am not particularly hungry for a more friendly Ganondorf, because the development the Gerudo get throughout the last couple of games has been enough for me. I don't necessarily need to have Ganondorf as chunks.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's a must-have. I'm just saying
no. But I think that's why I would never consider it, because I think I'm fulfilled enough with just the Gerudo getting development.
But see, the thing is, the Gerudo get tons of development, but their connection to Ganondorf and its effect on them is purely in the realm of stuff you need to infer. In Tears of the Kingdom, they talk about how they have this long-standing traditional belief that men, or Vo, as they call them, carry misfortune with them, so they're not allowed to let their children talk to men before a certain age and all of that, even though they kind of need to send them out in the world to find husbands and stuff. The thing about that is, you can infer very easily that the reason they hold that belief is because of Ganondorf. Some distantly remembered impression of that time Ganondorf tried to take over the world and consigned their entire people to near extinction for several games, because in previous games, you could, the Gerudo vanished, but there were signs that they had existed in the past. In Twilight Princess, there's a whole dungeon based off of a former Gerudo, the Arbiter's Grounds, that's what it's called. It used to be a Gerudo temple, and you can see, this is getting annoying. And you can see the remains of the Gerudo as you explore the dungeon, but the Gerudo I don't think are even in the game at all.
No, they're not.
And it's, god damn it.
Good thing your toes don't disintegrate when they touch the evil green water.
Man.
Yeah, but no, I agree. I'm just more thinking about it because Ganondorf will come back eventually because he's too popular not to, too iconic not to. And when they do, considering that Zelda storytelling has honestly gotten so much better over the past, couple of games, that I just want them to try.
Yeah.
I would prefer just a straight up new antagonist.
Or bring back Vadi for some flavor.
I mean, Echoes of Wisdom, slight spoilers, does have a different antagonist who's interesting conceptually, but also not particularly, deep or well-developed. I also don't entirely understand, because Ganon's also in that game, but I also don't really understand the link between that antagonist and Ganon.
Ganon is not actually in the game. There's no link. He's literally just an echo that the bad guy brings
What do you mean
up.
there's no link? Link is in the cover of the game.
Implies, though, that the bad guy of Echoes of Wisdom killed Ganondorf then, because that's how you get Echoes, is by defeating the original thing. That applies both to you, Zelda, and to them, because they get the Echo Link, the Echo Dark Link, and the Echo Dark villagers by sucking them into the void.
The only thing we know officially about Echoes of Wisdom as it sits in the timeline is that it's on the hero dies timeline, speaking of that whole mess, but it's before Legend of Zelda 1. It's before the kingdom declined into that wasteland. So
what did Zelda do?
So instead of saving the world, she slept in her princess bed for
God damn
9
it.
hours and never got out.
Well, technically she didn't do anything. All her echoes did all the work.
Hey,
Yeah, she told, like a true monarch, she told them what to do.
speak for yourself, okay? Okay, you can take a very active hand in combat in that game just by flitting in and out of sword fighter mode while your echoes are out.
Yeah, and then the game will stop and it'll go, and then it'll stop.
Well, yes,
and then it'll
but
do
look,
it again, and then it'll
but
stop.
look, after years of playing Link's Awakening, I am numb to that. Okay, the Guardian Acorns and the Pieces of Power have imbued me with a wonderful tolerance to that kind of pacing bullshit.
Oh. Listen, that's a you problem, all right?
Yes, it is. But, you know, Echoes of Wisdom is... why are we talking about Echoes of Wisdom now? We're going to blow all the load before I even record the commentary.
Because there's nothing to fucking talk about here. What's happening on the screen? Not a goddamn thing.
The world's slowest wall shimmy.
You literally fast forward through one of them.
Well, that's because he had already done that one before. This is
This
new
looks
content,
exactly
baby.
I should talk about this level a bit before it goes off screen. The underground waterway and the underground tunnel that Reinhardt played, they're actually, like, both very different levels in terms of construction. I actually prefer Carrie's stage over Reinhardt's because Reinhardt's is just a lot of, like, maze-like cave corridors with the spiders coming after him. But what jumps out to me is that Reinhardt gets a unique enemy for his stage. Carrie doesn't. She just gets the Sahagin, who already pop up in Castle Center, so it's not even really all that much of a unique enemy.
The Sahagin are the, like, mermaid guys who jump out of the water like assholes, and then you kill them, and then more jump out because they're dicks.
Yes, and if you're playing Symphony of the Night, you just wave your sword vaguely in the direction of where they spawn for 5 minutes and level up twice.
Emphasis on vaguely.
You just stand where you think they'll pop up and keep swinging your sword, and eventually you'll level up, yes.
Is Symphony of the Night, like, a game where you need to grind, or is it just something people do?
No.
Absolutely not.
Alright. Like, because I never felt the need to level grind in any of the other Castlevania.
Well, the thing is, your first few levels come at you so fast if you grind a bit on Sahagin at the very start of the game that most everyone I've seen play the game has at least just stopped there to gain a level or two before moving on. Because it does make the start of the game a little easier if you have a bit of a stat boost to make up for the fact that you have nothing.
That is a typical RPG thing where getting levels like 2, 3, 4 mean a lot more than levels 16, 17, 18. Unless if there's a specific spell or whatever, you know, but going from 5 strength to 7 strength means a lot more than going from 20 strength to 22 strength in most video games.
Yeah.
So I think I get it. I just when I was playing from the Castlevania games I played, and it's been a while since I played any of the Metroidvanias, so grain of salt and all of that. Generally speaking, finding a new weapon or soul or, you know, whatever that game's equivalent is, generally I found was a more effective way of helping with a boss fight than just brute force level grinding, which, for the record, I think is good game design, because brute force level grinding is, I think, most people's least favorite part of old RPGs, for good reason. So, I am glad that, you know, modern games have come up with a lot more solutions to that than older games had.
Even in a day and age where most RPGs or re-releases of RPGs have a fast forward feature.
Yeah, but, well, it's just more interesting. Like, when the solution is adjust your strategy, that to me is more interesting gameplay than go into the corner for 10 minutes, kill a metal slime or Chansey or whatever your equivalent of it is in the game, and then come back later when you have more strength.
Right.
Like, because that doesn't necessarily result in you changing what you have to do and making interesting decisions. It results in you watching YouTube for a few minutes while you play the game half-mindedly, and then doing the same thing you did but stronger. Without having to change what you...
I guess, like, a different strokes for different folks, obviously, because folks prefer one over the other, but I kind of like that, though. Like, one of my favorite things about recording some of the older Final Fantasies, especially the more difficult ones, like 5, was going into that grinding mindset for, like, 15, 20 minutes, and just listening to something on YouTube. I just found it very relaxing. It took me back to being a kid.
I mean, don't get me wrong, grinding doesn't necessarily have to be non-enjoyable. This has come from the guy who spent 1,000 hours playing Hyrule Warriors, getting everybody to level 99 in every version. You know, like, grinding does get you into a certain Zen-like mindset at certain points. I'm just saying, generally speaking, I find it more satisfying when I beat the boss, and I feel like I beat the boss because I succeeded with my strategy or with my skill, versus I succeeded because you
beat
don't
the
have a
fucking
chance
shit
unless
out of
if
them.
you have
Big
a-
number go up.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's kind of like this,
I'm of the camp. I was like, I beat the fucking shit out of them because I trained.
I mean, if you wanna be Goku, then go for it. Goku is the world's biggest level grinder. You know, like he's level 5,000. No, I should have said 9,001.
But it took him until
Goddamn.
Super to finally achieve limit break status. It's like, Christ, Goku, you got to work on your gear.
Isn't Kaioken supposed to be the limit break?
No, you
though?
see, the thing is, Goku was that idiot, like me, who invested in Omni Slash in Disc 1 at the Gold Saucer, and then immediately equipped it. But because it's a level 4 limit break, you don't ever see your limit break meter fill up during the early game because you need, like, a bajillion damage for that to happen.
Ted, I'd argue that Kaioken and Super Saiyan are more buffs than they are limit breaks. If we're using
so it's
RPG
just like-
terms.
That makes sense because it's like a permanent stat boost. So yeah, it's like you cast Kaioken and then you get a strength boost, and then when you cast Super Saiyan, and then Super Saiyan 2 is like your level 2 buff. Okay, I can buy that. Okay.
The reason why I mentioned Super specifically is because Ultra Instinct is described as Goku breaking his limits.
You know what's funny about this cutscene? For some reason, it takes place in the sunroof room, and Actrice is just casually standing right in front of the sunlight. Carrie, rush forward and push her.
You say in front of, I don't, it looks like she was in that shit.
She was standing like right outside of it. You could see
Okay.
it. You could see it from the side angle that they were showing. She was like right in front of the sunroof, and I'm just like, Carrie, just run forward and shove her back a few inches.
She doesn't even need
Wait,
to.
what
She
are you
can just
doing?
throw an energy ball.
Yeah, she's got a chakra, dink her in the head.
Going by the Netflix show, that shit would dissolve her immediately. You know, my Soul Reaver instincts just kicked into full gear the moment I saw that cutscene for the first time, because shafts of sunlight like that are ways to kill vampires in Soul Reaver.
Oh, and so they kill you if you walk into them. I would
Ready
imagine.
for the skeleton on the Vespa.
No, because like Raziel was an ancient vampire lieutenant, so he would be weakened by sunlight, but he can survive in it just fine. But the fledgling vampires that you fight as regular enemies will burn up if they step into the sun.
Oh, so he's like, it's one of those things where the stronger of a vampire you are, the more resistant you are to the vampire weaknesses.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The only ancient lieutenant vampire who was actually weak to the sunlight to the point where it would kill him was Rahab, who compensated for it with total immunity to water.
Why am I reminded of the Austin Powers stuff from how slow these guys are going?
Because they move so
Yeah.
slow.
Look, the skeletons, their brains have rotted out of their skulls. Okay, you have to put up with their slow ass driving reflexes sometimes.
Yeah, they're just sitting there in the middle of the intersection. The light's been green for 30 seconds, and then they haven't noticed.
30 seconds, that shit's already red.
Yeah, by the time you honk, it's like they move forward, and then the light's red again by the time you would have been able to move up. You know. I do love the acrobatic flips that these vampires do. You know, just to flex on you.
Until they suddenly forget how to do it, apparently.
I also like that the vampire, this was I believe in the last part, but when you had weakened one of the vampires before you killed it, it tried to fly away by turning into the bat form, which I also thought was like a neat gameplay thing.
Actually, the only vampire who does that is George Aldry. And you can't actually kill him when he's in his bat form. He will fly away, and if you hit him with an attack while he's in bat form, he will drop money, but he will always get away until the final fight Reinhardt and Carrie have with him in his crypt. But, okay, I'm going to trigger this now on purpose so that I don't trigger it during the Nitro sequence. Thank you. Little did I know, triggering it here causes them to respawn every time you come through this room, so...
Oh, so Dan if you do, Dan if you don't.
The only winning move with these things is to not play. but then you don't get the hint about the puzzle, so you're going to have to do it on your first blind playthrough at least.
Who put strawberry jam in that statue's eyes?
Lone Star.
Anyway, the enemy that spawns here is the Blood Ooze monster. There are recolors of this monster that pop up in certain levels, namely Cornell's version of the villa when you're running around the maze, and the Tower of Sorcery, where a differently colored.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah, they're not particularly strong, and I have level 3 holy water, so fuck them.
It's probably more just that they irritate you while you're doing the Nitro puzzle, is what I'm assuming you were talking about.
I'll tell you what, for almost everything except Dracula, Carrie with a level 3 holy water is just like the best. Because she has, you know, her charge up ranged attack, but like the level 3 holy water also works at close to mid range really well because it causes a massive explosion. And it doesn't actually like damage you when it does. One of my favorite tactics is Carrie, once you have the level 3 holy water, is to just chuck it at her feet to create a barrier of damage between you and the enemy so that you can shoot your magic bolts like through it at the enemy.
I'm sorry, though. Can we go back to that code that you just read from that statue? The two phrases had nothing to do with each other.
No, they did not.
It's also like one sounds like, you know, your typical code for a video game puzzle. It's like Venus is the second sun or something like that, and then the second one is just you can use the magical nitro to blow up the wall.
I was gonna say that it's like the gold is the second child of Venus or some other shit, and the other one's like, here's a 50% off Arby's burger coupon.
It's like one is what the video game normally tells you, and the other is usually what you read in Nintendo. It's just very funny to me. I don't know, maybe somebody wrote the first hint and then somebody else walked by and's like,
I'm not doing this bullshit.
Nobody's going to be able to figure this out.
The fuck is this, Silent Hill? Just tell them where to go.
You know, one of the things that I think I noticed when I was playing Vanilla 64 is that you actually did have to jump onto the platform to check the statue directly to read the hint. In Legacy of Darkness, you can just read the hint from the ground, which is good because it means you can read the hints while you're carrying the Nitro, which is kind of important. Bit of an oversight in the original game there, I think. I like how Carrie gets the underground waterway where you fight the Sahagin and then they appear in the exact next level of her campaign. Whereas, meanwhile, Reinhardt gets the spiders and they never appear again. But you know, why are the Sahagin popping out of these pods? I can't help but wonder if maybe they had a different enemy plan for this area.
They might have. Those look like some sort of, like a weird, they kind of look like a coffin actually, but they're like all mechanical or whatnot. Maybe there were robo-zombies in Dracula's castle at one point. That is something that I've always kind of wondered about, where Aria of Sorrow set in the future, obviously, but the castle is still, you know, normal and gothic. Like, the most you see is, like, some of the zombies are kind of like World War II era soldiers.
They're not World War II era soldiers. They're soldiers from the 1999 war that was fought over the castle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, they have, like, you know, your traditional green army men kind of uniforms, so that's why I associated them with World War II. We've never really, from what I can remember, seen a Castlevania game with a lot of, like, modern influences. And I get that that's because the classic aesthetic is the gothic horror and also, like, it's Dracula's castle. But considering that the castle changes every time it comes back, it would be neat to see if it, like... I don't think Konami would ever have the balls to do it. But, like, oh, this is a Dracula's castle where... it's sci-fi, you know? Like, maybe that would be neat. I don't know.
We only catch a glimpse of it in Cornell's story, but once we finish the Castle Keep, our next level is the Tower of Science, and that is pure sci-fi.
Oh, okay. I think I missed that part, so...
Yeah.
So that's neat.
I only showed the first few seconds of it in Cornell's story because I was leaving it for Carrie, but...
Oh, okay, so we'll see it later.
The Tower of Science is all machines and conveyor belts and turrets and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because, like, the idea that the Castlevania changes every time is like neat. It's like it doesn't always necessarily need to have a dance hall. Like it could have other shit. It could have a tennis court. Who knows?
Given Dracula's old-timey aristocratic origins, I imagine that him maintaining that aesthetic is part of his personality. Like, he actually cares about the finer things in life as an old-timey aristocrat would.
Next Castlevania game should have the final boss against Dracula be inside the castle's tennis court.
or his gaming room setup.
No, and like Dracula, when he teleports, he opens his cape, shoots 3 tennis balls at you.
He's in like in a collared shirt.
Yeah, he's got his shorts. He's got a collared shirt on.
So the vampire can't wear khakis, but Dracula can wear a collared shirt and a tennis hat.
It fits the occasion, though, Ted. That's my point. But that's the issue that I have.
So what? Vlad Tepes watched Death Note and really liked that one episode where Kira and Elle have a tennis match.
Sure.
All right. I'm not gonna let it go. How badly that one AVGN episode misrepresented this part. I'm gonna look at the hazardous materials disposal thing. Every time I see it.
It's okay.
It's right there.
AVGN can't hurt you anymore.
It's right there. You can discard the Nitro there if you really need to. Okay.
Well, he was playing the original version. Was that in the original version?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Like I said this before, but this is actually one of the least changed levels in the game. The overall design is the same between the two versions. The only thing that's really different is that some of the item and enemy placement has been fine-tuned. Okay, that doesn't... The promise that you'll avenge his parents and destroy Dracula just doesn't have the same punch when it's coming from a teenage girl as it does, a grizzled vampire hunter. Okay. One of the things that I do have a problem with in both Castlevania 64 and this, and I understand that it's because development was kind of crunched by the end there, but like a lot of the cutscenes in the mid-game, specifically with Malice, are exactly the goddamn same between the two characters. It's just that they have slightly different lines when they're responding to Malice. And it's just like, even Resident Evil 1 did more with story variation between its two campaigns than this game does, and that kind of annoys me because Resident Evil 1 didn't do much.
Also, it's just like really weird how this kid's suddenly saying like weird cult shit, and then they're just like, huh? Okay. And then supposedly in the bad ending, she just acts like he's a normal 10-year-old or however old he's supposed to be. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, sure. Are you sure you don't think this kid's creepy by this point?
I guess they write it off as him just being panicked, but,
Baby, I don't know. I didn't get panic out of that. That looked very deliberate. Like, you couldn't keep the guys up for one more fucking minute.
He said,
well,
I'm going to consecrate your soul for the Dark Lord. You'll die like a wretch. Oh, he's just stressed by the situation, guys.
To be fair, it's easier to suspend your disbelief when the cutscene is completely unvoiced than it would be if they had actually voiced every cutscene and Malice had actually sounded deliberately menacing when he said that. You can sort of fill in the blank retroactively in your mind and think maybe he sounds a little bit hysterical or something.
Yeah, that Malice got a good head on his shoulders.